Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are awake, right? And I hope you enjoyed lunch. So today I am joined by really esteemed two experienced ladies, and I will be your moderator today. My name is Pilile Mkize from ABSA, and I am the coup for technology. In my role, I am responsible for driving efficiencies across the whole of technology at the bank, as well as being the CIO for functions. So I am hoping that we will be able to learn from each other and each other's experiences. And I would like to introduce, or for my panel members to introduce themselves, and just to go back to the topic. The topic for today is elevating experiences in the digital era. And I think as they introduce themselves, you will, in no doubt, learn and get insights from what we're going to be sharing this afternoon. So just over to Mombi first.
Good afternoon. As you heard, my name is Mombi Odame. I look after client experience and design at RMB. Pilile asked us to say something interesting about our roles,
Correct.
so I'll try. I think from a client experience perspective, I've had the wonderful opportunity to think about how you bring about client experience changes, improvement, transformation in an already successful organization. I mean, because RMB is a high-touch organization, so it's been a very interesting, challenging opportunity. And then just from a design perspective as well, looking at the digital side of things, similarly, being a very high-touch organization, what's the role of digital in that process? Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And then Dolly, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dolly Mpahlele. I work for First Rand Group Treasury. I will just introduce myself in one word. I'm a leader that trusts in her people.
Nice. And people do provide the experiences. And maybe just to get into it, around some of the trends that we have been seeing over the years, particularly around banking. I've seen a report that mentioned that companies, any company for that matter, that where a customer has an unsatisfactory engagement or interaction with whoever, be it in a physical interaction or digital, they will switch, and that's over 50%, just because there are choices. And then we think about in the banking sector, where even banks, if you were to go into a shopping mall, they're very close to each other, and therefore just that 50% switch becomes a very easy choice to make. And if I were to just talk about some of the trends that we have seen over the years, and maybe Mombi, just starting from your side, what you have seen and how that translates to how you think about the work that you do on a daily basis in ensuring that you still retain that potential 50% that could switch. It would be great to just hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I found it interesting actually listening to Dr. Mark earlier when he did the PESTEL presentation around the things that are driving AI. And that's because there was a lot of alignment between what he said and what my research brought out when I looked for what are the trends driving the digital experiences. I mean, the evolving technology, obviously, from a perspective of what do you actually do with that technology? Because I'm obviously in a B2B world, and from a individual perspective. Everyone is experimenting with it, but the blur between what I do as an individual and what I do in my role in a corporate has completely become blurred. So if I'm using ChatGPT, I'm expecting that if I go to the office, I can also use ChatGPT to do what I need to do. But so do our clients. Our clients are expecting the same things. So that evolution of technology and the expectations that it's starting to bring up in organizations, I think when we sit in meeting rooms, in boardrooms, sometimes we go back to thinking that we can be very corporate and structured and it's very different from an individual. But the reality is from the other side, from the user's perspective, that's not the case. That user is expecting the same things they do in their individual life to actually be the same things that the organization does. Obviously, we know there's challenges to keeping up with that. So, but luckily I have Dr. Mark there thinking about those things around how we deal with AI and make use of it in the organization. And then the other things like the availability of content and information in short bursts, right? So if I say it from an individual perspective, it's rather obvious. If I'm looking for something, a quick 5-minute video, actually less video is better for me than putting for me a document to read. But let's think about it from a corporate environment and what we are giving our clients. We still give them documents to read, or we give them a website with a whole lot of content, but it's written content. And I'm not saying it's wrong to put written content. I think there's a place for it. But there's also space for visual content that a lot of people actually want to go in, get exactly what I want in a few seconds, and then get on with what I want to do. And these are some of the expectations clients have when they're using our digital solutions. And I can go on, but let me first give Dolly a chance
You can carry on,
before
carry
I
on.
move on.
And Dolly, on your side, I think also just talking about customers wanting service, whether it's physical at a branch or on a digital side, they want information that flows and personalization and call it the correctness of data then becomes quite important. What are also some of the trends that you have seen in your space?
In my space, I'm lucky to be working for the Innovative Bank. So I've been engaged and involved in a project where we centralize data so that we can have a single integrated view of a customer, so that when they talk about Dolly, they won't say Dolly, the other one say DR, the other one says Ms. Mpahlele or whatsoever. So I've seen it working for us to ensure that we have one single view of the customer, and with the assistance of artificial intelligence as well, we have been successful in a company. So I want to just take this thing back and say the trends that I've been seeing going on is that we are moving, yes. If I can ask in this room, how many of you are using digital or cell phone banking or even tapping or pay sharp, as they've mentioned it before? Almost all of you will be that. But if I go home and ask my mom, can you do internet banking? The answer is no. So as much as we are aware of the trends that are going on here, I don't think everyone is aware. They spoke about democratization of data. That data that we've been democratized to access, does it include everyone? The answer is no. So there's a lot of trends that are going on. Does my mom know how to use Copilot? Does she know how to use ChatGPT? No. I remember one day I was at home and then I'm speaking to my kids. You know our kids most, they are very involved. And so we speak about something and I say to them, let's Google it. And then we keep on saying, let's Google it. My mom is like, what is this Google that you guys keep on talking about? So we could see that she's actually left behind. She's not actually included. So how do we now include her in terms of aligning with the trends of, for example, banking? Mm-hmm. Another trend that I just want to pick up is a trend of using fintechs versus traditional banking or even the banking that we have today. For me to go and interact with banking and having to, some of the apps, you have to put your face when you're wearing a makeup, it can't even detect you, But then if I have to go to ShopRite and just stand over the counter and say, I want to send this 1,000 rand and I'm only paying 9.99, which one will you take? I would take the 9 rand. So when this digital experiences go, we have to always go back to the customer and say, what is it that we want? Empathize with the customer and say, if I was you, how was I gonna feel? So with everything that I've said, with this data that is big data that we are collecting, are we using it for the advantage of the customer's experience, or are we just collecting it for the sake of collecting it?
Yeah. And I think you're touching on something very important, which is around that personalized customer experience. So depending on age, maybe even the cultural nuances, all of those things need to be considered. And it's very important, I think, also from a design perspective, on how that insight gets into how the solutions are then developed and pushed into our customers. Mumbi, what are some of those strategies that you guys look at when you think about more the personalized customer experience? And is it affordable? And can you cover for everyone?
I guess I'll come back to what Dolly was saying just now, because even in the corporate world, I mean, we tend to talk a lot from our B2C environment, but even in the B2B world, I mean, we have services which we would really like to digitize, but we have customers who are willing to pay. They are willing to pay for you to do it. And they're saying, I'm paying you to do it, don't put it in front of me. So I'm back to what Dolly was saying around just knowing your customer and knowing what is value to them and what is not value to them. Because you could go spending a lot of money to personalize something that is not of value to clients. Yes, I do understand, and I know a lot of people in this room, especially designers, will say to me, sometimes the client is not aware of what you're bringing to the table until it's there, and that's true. But in terms of balancing resources as to what do I start with, what do I not start with, where do I invest my money, then from a personalization perspective, you do want to spend time understanding who your client is and what they're ready for and where you can leapfrog and where you need to wait for the client to catch up with you. I'm a fan of generational trends, and I think most of those generational trends tell us where we are going. So one of those being the younger generations today who are very passionate about things like sustainability. And those things are going to come into the environment. I mean, we spoke about millennials and Gen Zs for a long time. They are now in the workforce, right? So they are not coming, they're already here. And they are influencing the thinking around that. They are going to be the next finance manager, the next treasurer in an organization. And as you do personalization, especially in the B2B world, you really have got to understand what the context is. Dr. Mark also spoke about contextual experiences, as well as who are you speaking to? Because the person you're speaking to will not necessarily, just because they are a certain age, will not necessarily mean they will respond to the same way with somebody else of the same age in a different context.
Yeah. And I think we also spoke about how I think we all come from, maybe, let me just check, we all come from Africa, and meaning some countries or even some communities are still digitally excluded. And if we're talking about digital experiences, you need that infrastructure and you need the tools, you need the devices that will enable that. How are you as the bank also thinking about those that are not included, so to speak, Dolly's grandma, what are some of those strategies that you are putting in place to ensure that nobody is left behind? Because it's an experience. Their story is just as important, and they are your client.
I mean, like I said, I'm in a B2B world, so our challenges are different from addressing the last mile element.
Correct. Yes.
So, but I think it comes back to, and I think Dolly mentioned omnichannel as well.
Yeah.
And I'm yet to come across an organization that's truly doing omnichannel in the banking services, and maybe it's just I don't know, so please let me know if you do know one. And when I say omnichannel, I'm talking about, so for example, if I go and shop, maybe I should talk about the most recent Temu.
Correct.
You just need to touch them once and they target you like you can't believe it, right? So they know exactly where you are and what you're looking for and how you're looking for it. In our context, which is not shopping, that challenge is a bit different. But you still need to know your customer enough to understand when to be digital and when to be physical. I did mention that we are a high-touch organization, so we take our face-to-face relationships quite seriously. We talk to our clients. We want to speak to them when they need to be spoken to, but we also want to be digital when they need to be digital. We've done some work around, we deal a lot with treasurers in organizations, and what is the treasurer looking for? What is the treasurer of the future looking for versus what the treasurer of today is looking for? And you find that yes, they want a high touch because we have a lot of advisory work to do with them, but at the same time, they don't want to be involved in manual processes in some of the day-to-day pieces. So it goes back to understanding what is of value to your client and where do they want to have a physical channel to operate from versus where do they want to be in a digital space.
Yeah, and any comments from you, Dolly?
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to ask from the room, one person. I'll pick on you, Mary-Ann. How will you feel if a message comes to you and say, "Dear Mr. Kekana"? I'll answer for you. Don't worry. So if a message comes to me and say, "Dear Mr. Mpatlele," I will say, maybe they're looking for my dad.
Yeah.
No, my brother, not me. So personalization and knowing exactly who you're speaking to is very important. And it makes us gain our dignity as people. So technology is here for us to regain our dignity, not to diminish it. So number 2, in terms of inclusive, to say let's make sure we reach everybody. I would say it's a partnership and collaboration. And the regulation, most importantly, because some regulations might want to include, meanwhile they are excluding. So the infrastructure is number 1 problem. I am from the rural areas, so most of the time you'll find, when I'm working from home, you'll find me with my laptop trying to find network, maybe by the mountains or something like that. Sometimes the cable has been stolen. There's no electricity for me to connect. I have to start my car and start looking for a place to go work or work in the car so I can charge my laptop. So infrastructure is very important. We need to make sure that what we build, our devices are compatible. Because if there's no network, then what's the use of me doing app banking? Because I'm reliant on network to do that. So yeah, infrastructure, partnership as well, because you can't do it all as one man. You need to partner with everybody so that we can work towards one goal. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Awesome. And maybe just coming back to the audience, maybe by show of hands, who here has a parent or call it a relative that's over 80? That's using digital, call it platforms, cell phone banking, all of that. Show of hands? No? 60? Some of us are there already. 60? Yeah? Okay. And then 50? Yeah? Then hands are coming up. 40s? 30s. Okay, but I think just based on what Dolly has also mentioned, I have a mom-in-law who Googles everything. And you tell her something, she wants to just Google and check whether it's good for her diet. And so she started also Googling the banking products. And she's been with one bank for, over 30 years. And she had fixed some money for her grandkids, and now the money has matured, and she wanted to do something else with it. And then she goes to a branch, because that is how she prefers that human interaction, because she wasn't sure, talking about trust, she wasn't sure whether if she does anything on her mobile, in terms of transferring the money, it will go to where she wants it to go. So she goes to a branch, and then coming back to that 50%, she was not satisfied with the interaction that she had at the branch. And just like that, went to another branch, or another bank actually, wanted to see whether she would be able to get a similar product but with better service. And she did. And she switched after 30 years. And that talks to loyalty, retention, now really depends on the experiences that we provide. Whether you're on the front line, whether you're in tech, whether you're in data, it's all of us. And for me, it was actually a reflection on the solutions that we provide, as well as the very fancy branches. They don't matter. It's about that interaction that is personalized. And I think we talk about digital experiences, but there is also that human centricity that is quite important that we need to take into consideration. And I think just on that story, for me, in terms of the trends that we have been seeing and we continue to see, more and more people in Africa are going to be digitally included just because of how the world has changed. So what are we as the bankers, in terms of the solutions, the products that we are providing, allowing that insight to come into the experiences that we need to have and provide for our clients. Mombe, just maybe some last words and key points from you.
Yeah, you raise an important point, because when we talk of digital experiences, we're always talking about the end client and the person facing the system. But I think what you're raising now, and it's something that's quite important for us, because we have a lot of interaction with clients that's not digital, is how we enable the employee to provide that personalized and efficient and great experience to the client. And to do that, you have to worry about the digital experience of the employee as well. So even as we talk about the digital experience of the client, the employee experience is as important. Enabling them digitally to be able to know, to provide that context that we were talking about earlier, is as important as giving a digital platform to your client.
Thank you. And Dali?
So you spoke about trust.
Yes.
I'll unpack that one. So if I were to deposit money today from myself to you, the first thing is that, do I trust the system? Do I know that my money will reach you? The security as well, in terms of, am I not hacked? Things like those. And then I just want to mention one thing. As much as we look at trust, when we look at banking platforms, it also has to do with our safety. I had an incident whereby my cousin was hijacked and she was kept hostage. And then they look at her banking apps and say, log on here, let's see how much you have. Until this money is finished, we are not releasing you. So that's one of the things that the banks should look at. We should use AI in terms of predictive measure to say, Dolly never goes to Joburg CBD. She's in Joburg CBD today, and she's withdrawing such a chunk of money. What's going on? Because that's what AI should actually help us with for our safety as well. As much as they are enabling us, yes, and be mobile, but our safety, because we are operating in a highly dominated criminal place. So, yes, people are taking advantage of us today. Even at the malls, apparently they go in the elevator with you, and then they hijack you, they look at their banking apps, and then you have to, until that money has run out, sometimes they even ask people to deposit money for you. It's happening like everywhere. So they've mentioned things like pay shops and all that. Are they secure? Those wallets, are they secure? So I can say we can use AI to enable them. And again, most importantly, creating the awareness to say as much as this is going on, I know that my bank is creating that awareness. When I log on the first page, they talk about the trends that are going on, and I have to click got it. Because I'm ignorant, because sometimes we are burnt out as people, we are very tired, we just ignore and say, let me do whatever I want to do and get over and done. There's important information that I've missed. So one important thing is that human interaction. Let's not take it away. You just mentioned your mother-in-law because she didn't have the interaction. Yeah. Then she decided to take her business somewhere else. I would do the same. So if we are using AI, let's not move completely. Let's have the human touch, because as a person, I feel very special when I'm addressed by an individual who can empathize with me. Unfortunately, a robot cannot empathize with me. If I go to the bank, I say, I lost my phone, I lost everything, I want to block my bank accounts. I don't want to be responded by the machine because I know that they are programmed to say, hello, how are you? I don't want to know how are you now. I want to block my account. So human interaction and creating and training the people to answer to immediate questions that have been asked, that is relevant at that place, because one of the important things about information and data is the relevancy. So we'll go far. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. And then I'm just going to open up to the floor. Any questions for our panel members? Any questions? There's one. Yes, thank you.
And before I ask my question, I just want to give kudos to the organizing team. Last year, we complained or we mentioned that we didn't have a lot of women in the panel, and this year there has been quite a bit. So a round of applause to the team. Thank you. And just to pose a question, we've spoken a lot about the digital era and AI and what we can really achieve with it. However, how do we bridge the gap between what we can get from the digital era and AR and authentic client experiences, lived client experiences like Dolly's mom, who still wants the experience of a warm body talking to her about how she can transact and the things that she can do. And she's resigned to her fate that she may not use AI. How do we really bridge that gap between what we can achieve and lived, and the trueness of authentic client experiences? Design.
You want to take that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it. So I always say that to be able to provide an experience for an organization is actually it's a culture element. Because as much as we can put empathy in a textbook, empathy is very human. And until you yourself have the empathy for your client, then it's very difficult to translate to a lived experience. I always say that your employee experience is actually your lead indicator for your client experience, because whatever culture or experience your employees are having is what is going to translate to your client. But coming back to your question about bridging the gap to the lived experience, you won't know that lived experience unless you've actually interacted with the person. I was doing one user research some time back, and somebody was giving me an example where he was driving and he gave somebody a lift. And because he works in the bank, he asked the person, if we were to change one thing, what would it be? And this lady said that, if you can just give me smaller notes when I withdraw cash, because I need to go into the taxi and they don't have change for me when you give me 100 rand. Or it becomes a big issue when they don't have change. Now, that experience, you're not going to have it unless you've asked the person or you've spoken to them. It's not something that you're going to intuitively know. And there are many others like that. So I think at the end of the day, being true, and we play a lot of lip service to empathy. Because we speak about it, we get research, we get insights, and then if it suits us, then we accept it. If it doesn't suit us as organizations, then we still do what we want to do. And until we are true to the fact that we truly want to serve clients in the way they want to be served, then it's going to be difficult to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. And thanks to our panel members, Mumbi and Dolly, for all your insights. I think just to close off from my side is that customers do expect excellent customer experience. And it's regardless of whatever industry. But for us, particularly in the financial services sector, that I think you've seen during the keynote, the gap is getting wider and wider. The point is, or the question is, how are we going to close that in ensuring that we drive really seamless customer experiences that are going to ensure that our industry thrives. And I think it's quite important that next year when we engage again, the world would have moved. How would we have moved in our organizations? And that's the challenge to everyone. Thank you so much.